sohcahtoa review. This right here is the key to the first few questions. Sine of an angle is simply opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent, toa, is opposite over adjacent. That's J. All right? Now, it says here, look at the letter. So tangent of x. That means we're looking from x. So tangent, again, if you need to remind yourself, is opposite over adjacent. So what's opposite from x? 30. What's adjacent to x? 16. So we simply write 30 over 16. Now it does say simplify, so they're both divisible by 2, so that's 15 over 8. Now, sine of y. From y, we're looking from here now. Okay? Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So therefore, it is 16 over 34. Again, both even, so 8 over 17 reduced. Cosine of x. Again, starting from x, from this angle, x. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And the hypotenuse is always opposite the right angle. So that's 16 over 34. Again, both even, so 8 over 17. And notice, this brings up the other concept that was in our notes. The sine of this angle is the same as the cosine of this angle, and vice versa. Hence why number 2 and 3 are both 8 over 17. Sine of one acute angle is the same as the cosine of the other acute angle. Sine of r. From r, we want opposite and hypotenuse. That's 48 over 50, which reduces to 24 over 25. Cosine of s. So again, marking s. I want cosine adjacent over hypotenuse. 48 over 50. 24 over 25. Same concept as I just talked about. The sine of this angle is the same as the cosine of this angle, and vice versa. It's supposed to be an eraser. And last but not least, tangent of s. Starting here, tangent is opposite over adjacent. 14 over 48, or 7 over 24 reduced. Okay, decide what to use and solve. So, from this angle, what do I have? I have the opposite and I have the hypotenuse. So, sine of 27 is equal to, excuse me, we haven't had a guess pop in. So, sine of 27 is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. Now remember, whenever x is on the bottom, we just switch. So x is equal to 9 divided by sine of 27. And all you do is take your calculator. You're not going to do that for all these, but do a few of them. And literally type in 9 divided by sine of 27. 19.82. So it says round nearest 10th. So x equals 19.8. All right. From this angle, we know we have the hypotenuse, so it's going to be so or ca, sine or cosine. We have the adjacent. So adjacent, hypotenuse, and remember, and if it helps, always mark that hypotenuse right away. Even if we don't have one, that tells us it's going to be toa, tangent. So this is ca, cosine of 22 equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Again, switch the spots. 15 over cosine of 22. It's going to be the same thing as we just did, except we're going to use the cosine button. So when we type that in, we get x equals 16.2. I don't know what's happening here. 16.2 rounded. The nearest 10th. Okay, on the back. Again, mark that. As soon as I see that, and I have no number or letter, I know it's not sine or cosine. So from this one, I have opposite and adjacent. That's toa. Tangent of 19 degrees equals opposite over adjacent. When there's a number on the bottom, we simply just do this. So you take your calculator and type in 9 times tangent of 19. Well, aren't I silly? I looked at my own writing, which is supposed to be an A, lowercase a, for adjacent, and looked at it as a 9. That's just silly. So this is not a 9, that's not a 9, and that's not a 9. It's supposed to be 18, which is my lowercase a. Isn't that much better? So I multiply both sides by 18. So now when I take my calculator and I do 18 times tangent of 19, that's going to be much better. There you go. So that's going to be 6.2. Now notice, the parentheses don't matter if you do it last, but if I do it first, I need to close parentheses. Times 18. Okay, same answer. Notice what happens if I don't do that. 19 times 18. I'm actually taking the tangent of whatever 19 times 18 is. And, well, that's wrong, because you cannot have a negative length of a side. So here we have x equals 6.2. Over here, from this angle, I do have a hypotenuse, so it's going to be so or ca. I have my adjacent here and my hypotenuse here, so that's ca, cosine of 8 equals adjacent over 15. Multiply both sides by 15. That's weird. Don't know why that line just came in there. Well, that's not going to work. You go away. You go up there. We'll put a 5 back in here. I don't know why that's happening. So, 15. Sorry, be patient with me. So, I'm just going to type in 15 times cosine of 8 in my calculator. And when I do that, I get x equals 14.9, rounded. Number 11. I have a stupid smartboard, what I have. I have a hypotenuse, so I'm going to have sine or cosine. From my 41, I have opposite with my hypotenuse, so that's sine of 41 equals opposite over the hypotenuse. Switcheroony. Type that in the calculator. 17 divided by sine of 41, and I will get x equals 25.9. Which makes sense. It's bigger than 17, and it should be because it's the hypotenuse along the side. I have no hypotenuse marked with a variable or a number. Therefore, it must be a tangent problem. From this angle, I have my opposite and my adjacent. Looks like a 9 again. So, tangent of 29 is opposite over adjacent. I'm going to multiply both sides by 31. Type it in my calculator, and I get x equals 17.2 rounded to the nearest tenth. I have a hypotenuse. Therefore, it's going to be sine or cosine. From this angle, I have my adjacent right here. I have my hypotenuse. So that's cosine. Cosine of 65 equals adjacent over hypotenuse. I simply multiply both sides by 27. And again, I can type in 27 times cosine 65 or cosine 65 times 27. I will get x equals 11.4 rounded. No hypotenuse, so it's a tangent problem. From this angle, opposite and adjacent. So tangent of 15 equals opposite over adjacent. When x is on the bottom, switcheroonie. 11 over tangent of 15. Just type that in the calculator. 11 divided by tangent of 15, and I will get x equals 41.1. Last two. These could be word problems on a quiz or test, picture or with words. Now, I have a building, and I have a zip line from the top of the building down to the ground with an angle of elevation if I'm looking from the ground, or decline from the top. Doesn't matter. Okay? If the zip line is 75 meters with a angle of elevation of 42 degrees, what's the height of the building? That's how this could be simply a word problem. So, again, I do have a hypotenuse, so it's sine or cosine. For this angle, this is the opposite. This is the hypotenuse. So, sine. Sine of 42 is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. Number on the bottom, multiply by 75. Type in the calculator, and you get 50.2. Which makes sense. It has to be less than 75, which is the hypotenuse. 16, word problem. I'm on the ground looking at the top of the tree. 53 degrees of elevation. I am 50 meters from the tree. How tall is the tree? Classic word problem for this. Here's my angle. Again, I do not have a hypotenuse, so it's got to be a tangent problem. Here's my opposite. Here's my adjacent. So tangent of 53 degrees is equal to opposite over adjacent. Multiply both sides by 50. I get x equals, now this is not drawn to scale because this is actually taller than the distance, 66.4. And that's meters. These are both meters. So that's it.